Move on to the Reverend Jerry Falwell's funeral. You won't believe what one of my next guests is saying about his legacy.
It shows how much vulgarity and fraud and bigotry you can get away with on mainstream airwaves in this country as long as you have the word Reverend in front of your name.
Atheist Christopher Hitchens takes on Jerry Falwell's legacy, as well as one of the Reverend's admirers, next. He opened tonight the controversy over the legacy of the Reverend Jerry Fallwell. Fallwell died last week of heart trouble at the age of 73. At his funeral today, thousands of mourners packed the Virginia church Fallwell founded 50 years ago, the church he built into an evangelical empire. Fallwell was a polarizing figure in American politics for decades, thanks to the Moral Majority, the organization he founded to promote his vision of American values. At the service today, the Reverend Franklin Graham said those values are what made him controversial.
He believed in the inerrancy of Scripture. That's controversial. He believed in the sanctity of life, was against abortion. That's controversial. He believed in the family. And who would have ever thought that would be controversial? He believed in marriage was the union between a man and a woman. He believed that the moral decay weakened the fabric of America. That's controversial.
Joining me now, to debate Fallwell's legacy, writer Christopher Hitchens, who says Fallwell was a fraud. Hitchens' latest book is God is Not Great, How Religion Poisons Everything. Also with me, someone who sees Fallwell's legacy much differently, writer Eric Metaxas, author of Everything Else You Always Wanted to Know About God, but Were Afraid to Ask. Gentlemen, glad to have you both. Christopher, let me start with you. Fallwell was controversial. You heard the Reverend Graham say it right there. Isn't that a good thing? You're controversial. It gets people thinking and discussing and debating.
To be sure, and I wouldn't be on this show if you weren't giving me the opportunity to be rude about a man on the day he's buried.
You've called Reverend Fallwell a horrible little person, a vulgar fraud, and a crook. You've also said it's a pity there isn't a hell for him to go to.
Do you want to just spend all your time whimpering about what I've said, or do you have any comments?
Whimpering. No, I'm curious why you think he was such an idiot. I mean, there were thousands and thousands of people that followed him and believed in him. Are you saying that everybody that believed in him?
That's been true. That's been true of every fraud in history. I'll tell you why I think so. First, he believed in the rapture, in the idea that people like him were going to be snatched up, specially by Jesus, leaving the rest of us to die in the cars.
But hold on. Didn't you say that you don't think he believed in those things?
He believed in creation. He believed in creationism.
You said he didn't believe in those things.
He believed that the Antichrist was a Jewish male who was already amongst us.
Excuse me, the Christ was also a Jewish male. The Christ was a Jewish male. If you believe he existed, I'm not sure that you do. But the point is that I get confused.
I'm not sure that he did, no.
Pardon? Well, you're not sure he did. But the point is to say something like that. You're being merely incendiary, because the other day you said you didn't believe that.
Wine again.
Well, you said whimper earlier. You have to pick your pejorative verb. But the point is that you can't have it both ways. And I'm not trying to be incendiary, but I'm trying to figure out what your actual criticism is. Because you can't say that somebody believed these things and that's why he's a crackpot and an idiot, and then say that he only was in it for the money. Because that's what you were saying the other day.
He didn't say only for the money, but he used it.
You said he didn't believe these things.
He did very well out of it. I can't be sure. He may have been both a hypocrite and a bigot.
Eric, what does he leave behind?
Division, obviously, in some ways. I mean, I think his legacy is certainly mixed. The things that Fallwell believed in as a Christian are the things that any Christian believes in, and I think he in some ways very helpfully brought people who felt that they were out of the political process into the political process, and I think in some ways that was wonderful. I think it also contributed to a misunderstanding about what faith is, and I think that a lot of people confuse having faith as a Christian or a Jew particularly with morality.
I think that if you want to an encapsulation of his legacy, it shows how much vulgarity and fraud and bigotry you can get away with on mainstream airwaves in this country as long as you have the word Reverend in front of your name.
You don't think Fallwell had an ounce you don't think Fallwell was genuine at all, in any way, shape, or form?
No, I think he was a genuine bigot, but I also think it's quite compatible with him being a huckster, a fundraiser, a friend of the Jim and Tammy Bakers, for example, and other rip-off artists, and a fraud. Yeah, he was amply both of those things.
But the things that you said only hours after he'd been pronounced dead, I thought were very unhelpful and exceedingly...
I said them all the time he was alive.
Well,
I said them every day he was alive
but that's
as well.
the point.
Final thought.
I think that, again, here's the point, at least, is that if you have legitimate criticisms, and of course you do, I would be the first to say that you do, you don't help your argument by saying them in the way that you did.
Oh, I'll be the judge of that. Leave that to me, Mr. Patakis. I'll make my own case.
Why?
Thanks.
Eric
I didn't ask your advice, and I really don't think I'd profit from it.
Here I am to offer it.
We must leave it there. I appreciate you both and the debate. Thank you.
Anytime.